Thank you guys for sharing with me what's the one thing that gives you hope in your nonprofit. Today, we're going to be talking about streamlining your nonprofit websites and navigating for a better engagement. So, hopefully, this will give you some more hope. My name is Aretha Sams. I'm the webinar producer here at TechSoup. I'm going to show you how you can engage on the next slide. One thing about I love what Zoom upgraded is that if you tap the closed caption, you can now choose any language. So if you want Francais, Italiano, Espanol, you could choose any one that you like. The important thing about this slide today, we're going to send you the recording and the slides probably later today or early tomorrow so you can gain some more insights. I'm going to move out the way. It's been a pleasure of being here with you for these first 60 minutes, 60 seconds, excuse me. Turn this over to Melissa and Jason. You guys have a great webinar. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Aretha. Hi, everyone. My name is Melissa Pitts. I am the Director of Client Services for TAP Network. I am joined by my colleague, Jason Spangler. My background is in digital marketing, advertising, and account management. Here at TAP, I run a lot of our website projects, and I am excited to share what I have learned in working with so many wonderful nonprofits like you. Excited to share what I've learned from their websites and working closely with them over the years. Jason.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jason Spangler. I'm the Director of Business Development at TAP. I very much am kind of the tip of the spear when it comes to our team working with clients like yourselves. So everyone that inquires through TechSoup that's looking for some help typically runs through me. We meet, discuss your individual challenges and try to help provide guidance on the best way to accomplish those, whether that is you doing the work yourself, a collaborative process with our team, or offloading the entire burden to us and letting us kind of take over and take the reins. So excited to kind of walk you through this. I know Melissa will be walking you through primarily the beginning part of this, but then I'll tail end and kind of help towards the end. Melissa, go ahead.
Sure. So, just a quick overview of what we're going to be reviewing today and what you can expect. We'll take a look at what is website navigation and also why it matters. We will provide some hopefully helpful feedback of how you can jump right in and start to improve the navigation on your website. And then we will do a fun interactive piece where we'll do a live website review. So you'll have an opportunity to drop your URL in the chat at that time, and we'll take a look at, we'll randomly select a few sites, take a look at them, and work with you to make some recommendations for your real websites. We'll wrap up by talking about our website services that Jason mentioned and how you can get started with those. Before we dive into the content, just a quick overview of TAP Network. We are a partner and have been a partner of TechSoup for quite some time. We provide digital marketing and website services for TechSoup. We are a mission-driven marketing and technology agency. And like I mentioned earlier, with our experience with nonprofits, we look forward to sharing what we've learned with you and your organization. Just some of the things that we can do to help are listed here, and we're happy to have a conversation with you about how this applies to your organization specifically, because this is unique for each individual and each organization. But from branding and logo design, website development, CRM implementation, and ongoing support such as updates to your website, search engine optimization, advertising, social media strategy. The list goes on, but we are a full service digital marketing agency. We specialize in services designed to help nonprofits grow, and these are just a few of those services. So we'll start off with a poll question before we jump into our content. I would love to get a good understanding of what is the primary goal for your organization and your website right now. You can answer this in the chat. A would be raise donations. B would be provide information about programs and services. C, recruit volunteers or advocates. D, increase event participation. And E, you're not sure yet. I'll give everyone just a second to respond. Seeing a lot of B, provide information about programs and services. Mixed in with some A and D, which is about what I would expect. Great. See some C's in there as well. All right. Hey, it seems like everyone has a good grasp on what their goal is for their website, which is going to be really helpful with the tips that we'll go through today. I'm not seeing too many E's, which is great. All right. So first things first, what is website navigation? So when we're talking about navigation, we're talking about the user experience on your website, primarily on your homepage and primarily in the header of your website that allows users, regardless of the device, to navigate between the different pages in your site. The reason we separate this out from, let's say, a sitemap as a whole or a list of all the pages on your website is that this isn't necessarily a list of all of the pages on your website, but it's a gateway for users to come to your website, find what they need, and start that path to the page that they ultimately are going to land on. So navigation might be it's going to help your visitors move through the site. It might be something like a top menu that you see here in the example. It's going to look a little bit different whether you're on desktop, tablet, mobile. On desktop, you're typically going to see like a full expanded menu, and on mobile or tablet, you're typically going to see more of like a hamburger menu or the 3 lines where you can expand it and look at the menu options. This is also part of your navigation would be any links, buttons, or calls to action that are primarily on your homepage or kind of that top layer of the header of your website at the top. And then footers and mobile menus, they count too. So if you have a menu that repeats in the footer of your website at the bottom of the page, it might be exactly the same as the one at the top, but it might be a little bit different. It might be for a slightly different target audience. So that's an essential piece of this strategy as well. What your navigation should do as a whole, what your goals should be, are to help users understand where they are, know what they need to do next, and know how to get there quickly and easily. Historically, this is a challenge for nonprofit organizations because of the various audiences that you serve. I can see from your responses to the last poll question that you're trying to do a bunch of different things with your website. So a lot of people are trying to not only get event participation, but also raise funds and also inform about programs and services. So that's a lot to do, and there could be different people that you're trying to reach with each of those. So navigation is super important because you want each user to feel like they know exactly where they need to click to get to the information that they need to succeed and have a positive experience with your website. Let's do another quick poll question. Now that we've done a little walkthrough of what website navigation is, how confident are you that users can easily find what they need on your site, regardless of the audience that they're from? How confident do you feel that they can find what they need? A, very confident. B, somewhat confident. Sorry. B, somewhat confident. C, not confident. D, not sure, and you haven't tested it yet. Give everyone a second to respond. Seeing a lot of B and C, which is great. There is room to improve, but it sounds like everyone has a pretty good read on where their site stands as of right now. So hopefully we can provide some tips and some ideas for improving that and even review it in our live portion. Okay. So we got into this a little bit before, but why navigation matters is it's all about the user experience, regardless of the audience that the user belongs to. So we want everyone to feel like they know where to go on your site and what's coming next. So if you have confusing navigation or even missing navigation, we end up with donors who can't find where to give or where to donate, even though they come to the site and intend to. We have volunteers that might miss out on certain opportunities or not understand where to look for those opportunities that fit with their schedule. Clients or prospective clients might struggle to find information about the programs and services that you offer. And just in general, what you're going to end up with if you don't have a solid navigation strategy and a solid navigation in place with your target audience in mind is you're going to end up with lower engagement, fewer actions taken on your website, and ultimately lower impact, right? You're not going to have as many people clicking, as many people consuming information, and as many people converting into the action that you want. So we want to make sure that we have clear navigation that guides our users to take meaningful next steps, not just click through pages and find information that they don't need, but actually land on the information that they need and then take the action that you want them to take, and also hopefully that you can track. So, what are the things that make user-friendly navigation? We've got some examples here, and I know they are probably a little bit small on your screen, but we'll talk through these and talk through some real examples as well. So you want to make sure you're limiting this and you're conscious of screen size. So people might be on their desktop, they might be on their tablet, they might be on their phone, and one, you should make sure you're limiting the number of items on the navigation regardless of the screen size, right? So it's not about whether 5 to 7 top level items fit on a screen or not. It's more about overwhelming your audience. So you don't want people to have to pick from, let's just say, 15 different options. They're not going to know where to go. They're not going to see a cohesive picture of what it is that you're trying to offer via your website. 5 to 7 is a good range that typically looks nice on the screen, but also can just easily be kind of downloaded and comprehended by the user, and they can normally kind of discern where they need to go and find the page that they're looking for from those 5 to 7 items. You also want to make sure that there are clear kind of categories for these 5 to 7 items, right? So it doesn't mean that you can only have 5 to 7 pages on your navigation. You may have 50 pages on your navigation, but you only have 5 to 7 top level items. It's really important that you're categorizing those appropriately. So those 5 to 7 things, when someone expands upon that, they get the kind of drilled down information that they're expecting to get. And it needs to make sense to your entire audience, not just within your organization. So super important to make sure that you're conscious of that. You want to make sure that you're keeping actions like donate, register, sign up really visible. So you can see in all of these examples, I think mostly on the right-hand side of these examples here, there are call to action buttons. So we're saying, this one action is more important than all the rest. Here's the one that visually your eye should be drawn to, that you as a user should navigate to, because this is our most important piece. So whatever that may be for your organization, you want to make sure that visually you're handling that way in this kind of header area of your website. We talked about the drop downs being logical. We have options for things like mega menus or just regular menus, which we can talk about some examples of. And then you also want to make sure that you structure this to your user goals. So something like revisiting the clear categories piece, about us, our work, get involved. That makes sense to all of your users. That doesn't need to be specific to your audiences. But if you do have really specific content, something that's helpful sometimes is to make those top level items correspond to a specific audience. So, for students, for volunteers, for donors, and then the pages that drop down underneath those are for those audiences. That can really help create a user-friendly navigation if you have a lot of different types of people and audiences visiting your site. Another reason that navigation is so important is that for accessibility reasons. So while devices or screen readers might be taking a look at your website, it's very important that this be clear and allow users, whether they're looking at the screen, whether they're listening to it through a screen reader, to manage and navigate your site in a very clear way. So to the previous point, 5 to 7 top level items, keep everything organized and concise. That's going to help for accessibility as well. You also want to think about what that means for various devices and accessibility as it pertains to something being mobile friendly. So how does your menu function? Sometimes there are really cool kind of bells and whistles we can put on menus or sites as a whole, but they don't translate so well to mobile. So you want to make sure that your mobile experience allows for a menu that is touch friendly, so people can easily tap on what they need. It expands, it visits links as expected. You want to make sure you have contrast, and this is true for more than just your menu, but you want, especially on your menu, make sure that the contrast between either the background image, this can be a problem with menus a lot of times, the background image or the background color, if it's a solid color, that the text has enough contrast so that it can be read by anyone that may have any vision issues, or just anyone looking at the site, that it's clear what those words say. You want to make sure that keyboards and screen readers can use the navigation. You want to make sure that any icons that are used in the menu or buttons are labeled clearly. And then also, as always, with any aspect of your website, you want to make sure you test it on multiple devices, multiple browsers, and make sure that it's usable, easy to navigate, and consistent throughout. And I see in the chat that someone asked, should we have home on the top level navigation? And that's a great question. It really depends on the user experience. For the most part, users expect that clicking the logo in the header will take them back home. So a lot of times you can leave that off as one of your 5 to 7 menu label, top level menu labels. A lot of times you can just use your logo and have that click home, and users are used to that. One of some of the things we can go over are common mistakes that you might see for navigation menus. So one is that there may be too many menu items, exceeding that 5 to 7, like we talked about before. Confusing labels that make sense maybe to only one specific audience or internally to your organization, but not to your target audiences. Call to actions that are buried way far down on the page or not clear what the call to action is. Menus that aren't mobile friendly or responsive and aren't working well on other devices, and then ignoring the accessibility piece where there's no support for screen readers or keyboard use for your navigation. So, what can we do about this? How should we approach optimizing navigation for your site? The very first piece is not related to your website at all. We actually want to take a step back and think about your user journey. So you want to think about who it is that's coming to your site, what that person specifically is trying to accomplish, and what's the shortest path on the website to get that person to accomplish what you're trying to get. So let's use a donor as an example. A donor could come to your website. They should see a donate now option. They should click it. They should land on a page where they can enter their information and donate right away. They shouldn't have to jump through hoops to get to that donate form to be able to take that action that's very important for your organization. They should be able to easily get there with no friction. So going through that process, a donor is a really straightforward example, but a lot of times we know in real life that's more complex, right? So you want to make sure that you're developing out that user journey and understanding each person and what action you want them to take, but also make sure everyone in your organization's on the same page about what actions you want them to take. This is a sample user journey map that just shows you kind of start with where someone's coming from, how they landed on your website, and then what they do once they get there in an ideal world. So sometimes this one's pretty complicated, but sometimes just mapping this out, even if it's just one line or a couple of branches, mapping out where this audience typically comes from, how do they find your site, where do they normally land, and then what do you want them to do from there can be really helpful. The next thing you can do is use any metrics or analytics to help improve your navigation. So taking a look at some of the key performance indicators or KPIs for your website, and Google Analytics is a common and free tool for this, taking a look at what pages on your site are people visiting most frequently. And you can also pull up, as you can see in this screenshot here, you can also pull up a map of what the user journeys look like for people now. And so that might be something good to see if you see people are landing where they need to and taking the action that they need to, but you might find that people are visiting way more pages than they need to, or they're dropping off before they get to the page that they need to. So taking a look at real analytics and not just anecdotally deciding what the user journey should be is really helpful and powerful information. Another thing you can do to help understand, a better way to organize your content is to actually do a content audit. So the way that we do content audits and what we recommend for the most kind of cohesive way to do this would be to either pull a copy of your sitemap from your current website if you have it, or you can use a search engine crawler tool to pull all of the URLs that exist on your website, drop them in a spreadsheet, and do an audit of all of the pages that exist on your site. Are there any that are there that don't need to be there that might be kind of clogging up your user journey? Are there any that are that maybe need to be updated that don't have the appropriate information that they should, but are getting a lot of traffic. And then what pages are working well. So going through and doing this, I find it's really helpful to look at it in this format and kind of drag things around and organize them and then translate that to your website. So it's a way to do this work in kind of an offline way and then translate the results to your website rather than in real time moving pages around and confusing your users that are currently on your site. This is another way you can visually do that. So if you have an idea of what each of your pages are, I find it super helpful to use something like, it can be as simple as PowerPoint or Google Slides. You can also use something like mockups where you can make flowcharts like this, but make a box for each page that's on your site and organize it. Something that might be helpful also is to bring this to other stakeholders within your organization. So it might be your colleagues, it might be some of your donors, it might be board members, but give them all of these blocks. And kind of the in-person way to do this would be with index cards, and they call it a card sorting exercise. Write each of these pages on a card, have someone, that other stakeholder, organize these in the way that makes the most sense to them. And then you collect all of the results and create ultimately what your navigation looks like based on everyone having kind of gone through that exercise so that you're getting everyone's perspective on how things should logically be organized. So that's a good way to get perspective on this sitemap or navigation. And then something else to mention, and our methodology or approach to building websites is growth-driven design. So we just want to keep this in mind as kind of the big picture of building your site is your sitemap, your navigation, your current website does not have to contain all information that ever is going to exist on your site. You can build an initial, what we call a launchpad site. You can do this planning work. You can build an initial site that has your base information for your core target audiences. And then over time, you can plan, develop, learn, and start over and do that continuous improvement cycle where your site is constantly growing and evolving. So you want to make sure that as you're making these navigation decisions, that they're also scalable. So you can add more pages, add more layers of complexity to that in the future as your site grows, as your organization grows. All right, so we are going to jump into the hands-on workshop piece of this, where we're going to take a look at real navigation on your site and get your feedback on what your challenges are currently and make some recommendations. So if you would like to participate, please drop your URL into the chat. We will select people at random and we'll ask you to raise your hand, and Aretha will unmute you so that you can tell us a little bit about your organization and your website, and we will go from there. All right, I have from Laura Ann Osborne, we have Rock the Ocean. And Aretha, if you don't mind. Laura Ann, if you can raise your hand, and Aretha, if you can please unmute her.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Great.
Hey there, this is Lorianne.
Hi, Loran. Thanks so much for volunteering. Can you tell us a little bit about your organization?
Yeah, so our organization, we are a nonprofit. We focus our efforts around raising funds and awareness for ocean conservation efforts. And one of our big fundraiser events each year is a 3-day music festival on the sand and the beach in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. So that's kind of our large event that we co-host and produce each year. And then as we've continued to grow, obviously expanded our outreach efforts throughout the year with our volunteers and beach cleanups and community events itself.
Cool. I love this video that's playing in the background. It's very cool.
Thanks.
What would you say are your challenges with your current site navigation?
Because of the many facets that we do, we have a music festival, we partner with other nonprofits, we are raising awareness, we're focusing on volunteers. I think, one of the biggest challenges we've had is trying to lay out the websites to your point so that people can get there navigationally easily, as well as, what is our sharing what our mission is directly, because we do so much for such a small nonprofit, trying to focus in on those certain things.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think in this video is super comprehensive, but I'm noticing in a regular user experience, I probably wouldn't sit and watch the entire
Right.
thing. But as you were talking, it actually corresponded quite nicely because as you were saying each thing that you do, the video was showing it, which is really cool. But if you think about most users, they do want to probably get that at a glance from your navigation. So it's important to kind of do that same thing up here in your navigation. I think the labels here are very clear. I think to kind of speaking to categorizing these appropriately, I think it is done well here, but something that you could really benefit from, I think, is expanding this events piece here. So
Okay.
that could be done on the homepage. You could have something a little bit, higher up, prioritized on the uh, hero image here, or even if you've seen like that, you can do a second layer of navigation where there are a lot of times those are on sites where like you have to log in or there's some sort of like credential to enter, but you can always do a second layer of navigation and you could call out the events, the more kind of like evergreen events that you have that happen each year rather than just, this volunteer cleanup's happening this day, this is happening this day. You could do music festival cleanups, like a high level view of your events. But I think that is the piece that you'd benefit from the most if you're looking for event registrations would be to call these three things out without having to drop down that menu item.
Gotcha. Okay. No, yeah, that definitely makes sense and kind of follows along some of our internal feedback as well. So very
Great.
good to know.
Great. And something else that might work, and this is probably more for desktop than for a mobile experience, but there's an option called Mega Menu, which I'm trying, Jason, if maybe you know off the top of your head, trying to think of one we've done recently that I could share, but it enhances that drop down so that you can actually make that a little bit more visual. And I think you could benefit from that because you could actually put like a logo or a visual for each event. So even if someone did have to hover over events to get there, it would show, like these are three super important parts of our organization and where we really want you to focus. So that's something to think about as well.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate the comments and feedback.
Thank you.
Trying to think of one off the top of my head, and I can't think of one, but it does. It provides just a little bit more of an experience without them actually having to click. So again, it's the whole point is to streamline their engagement with you, make it as easy as possible to get where they want to be. And sometimes a mega menu can be the way. There you go. Yes, Sam has one.
Yeah,
There's a
this is just an example but what you're able to do here is style this entire box rather than just say, these are the things that have to be listed under that menu and they're all the same color and they're all the same, like they all kind of pull the same weight. You can style this box and you can list more things this way. And you can also add, this one doesn't have a ton of visuals, but you could add visuals, which might make for a nice user experience there to call out your events.
Wonderful. Thank you.
All right, let's pick another one. Um, We'll take a look at Healing for Heroes, which is Home Base Amanda is the name. If you can raise your hand, please, Aretha can unmute you. While we're doing that, I see a question about how the menu translates on mobile. So you actually have some control over that. So you'd be able to, depending on the tool that you're using to do it, you should have control to decide how it looks on mobile and if you want to have that feature display on mobile or if you want to go with a more traditional menu for mobile. So you can kind of make that choice depending on what style you ultimately go with. All right, Amanda, let's take a look at your site. Can you please tell us a little bit about your organization and some of the challenges that you're facing with your navigation?
Yeah, so we are Healing for Heroes, and like everybody here, we are a nonprofit. Our mission is to pair suitable rescued dogs from our local animal shelters. We provide them with training to our veteran clientele that have PTSD or other health-related concerns. And so I think our biggest challenge with our website is, in my opinion, it's a little bit too wordy and I'm not sure that it drives home the message and mission statement as much as it could.
Great. Okay. What would you say are the top or the top couple primary actions that you want people to take?
I want people to make their way to the drop downs that have our application. So you'll see up at the top where it's got home, veterans, civilians, there's application links there. And then of course we need donations. So those would be our highest priority call to actions. We want for people to know that they can sign up for help with us, and also, donate.
Great. Okay. That makes a lot of sense. And I think something you could take advantage of here are something you've already started to do, but the way that you have contact us called out here as a call to action, it seems like maybe that's not the highest priority. It might make sense to use that space to do something like apply now or get started and have a
Mm-hmm.
page that whether it be for veterans filling out an application or civilians, whoever you need to fill out that application, have a landing page that's dedicated to what's the next step, regardless of the audience,
Mm-hmm.
and have kind of that get started action there. Or you can normally, and I think with this navigation, you could fit two, you wouldn't want to do more than two, I don't think, to overwhelm, you wouldn't want to overwhelm people, but you could do
Mm-hmm.
two buttons there to with two kind of primary calls to action. So I think that could really help focus people.
Mm-hmm.
Another piece that might be beneficial is looking a little bit further down on the page. You mentioned it being wordy, and I don't think there's excessive text here, but you
Okay.
could add some additional calls to action here. I think
Mm-hmm.
it's helpful to think of the home page as kind of a preview to the rest of the site. So your mission is here, but I'm assuming somewhere else there might be a little bit more about the background or the mission for the organization. So your button here might be like, learn more about us. And then maybe you take this next section and purpose is kind of connected to the mission. So maybe this section becomes about how to start an application or what the process looks like. So you can
Okay.
use the homepage to help start that kind of conversion process to drive, I'll say leads, but drive applications, drive prospects to come through. But use this area here to do that, kind of like these buttons, but make them a little bit more attached to these sections so that there are multiple calls to action throughout the page.
Mm-hmm.
And Melissa, I think to add on to what you're saying, because from a functionality point, I think you're like right on point. But I think it's when we have homepages, it's all about sharing that dream or aspiration for your nonprofit. And I feel like I'm a recording saying it, but it just needs to be said so many times that when people come to your site, you get maybe 5 to 10 seconds to tell them about your relevance. And so what they're after is what is that dream or aspiration? What do you intend to do? Because they want to see your impact on what you're trying to do. Because if it resonates with them, then they scroll down, then they click on buttons. They want to learn about more. Okay, if they share that same dream of helping, heroes, fallen heroes, etc., trying to help veterans, then they're going to go, oh, wait, I can get involved. Oh, here's how I could get started. And so you kind of want to guide them on here's what we're trying to accomplish. Here's how we do it. This is the impact we've had. And so that they can kind of put themselves in your shoes and go, I could do this. Wait, I don't have time to actually dedicate to helping them out, but I do have a little extra money and this speaks to me, so I'll donate. Or vice versa. I might be working, but I don't have time or financial means, but I do have extra time once a month where I could donate my time and volunteer. Just make it easy for them. I think a lot of nonprofits, they they think people intimately understand everything about them, and they don't. They're working a day-to-day job. They're driving their car when they're on your website. They're walking their kids across the street. So you're vying for a small portion of their attention. So just make sure if they do get to your site that you are very clear and concise about what you do, why you do it, the relevance, and how to get started, how they can partner with you to help bolster your impact.
Thank you. That's super helpful.
Thanks, Amanda. All right, let's take a look at, this is National Alliance on Mental Illness, New Hampshire, and this was submitted by, I lost my place in the chat, Patrick Roberts. Patrick, if you can raise your hand, please.
Hi, thanks for selecting us.
Yes, thank you. Can you tell us a little bit about your organization and your challenges with your website?
Sure. So we're a nonprofit based in New Hampshire, and we provide support, education, and advocacy around mental health. So with us, we're trying to reach a large group of people with many different areas. So in some cases, we're looking for donors. Others we're looking to help people we're supporting. Others we're looking at policy information. So we have kind of a very wide range of services and supports we're trying to get out there. So it's really trying to categorize things into areas that make sense for people, and then not only that, but making it so that they can find it within a subpage or anywhere else on the site.
Yes, absolutely. And that is definitely a common challenge, the like kind of classic, the target audience piece, right? You could almost have a different website for each target audience that you have. And so something that's helpful to do on the homepage is offer users the option to kind of browse by the audience or the like user journey that they are on when they visit your site. So I'll pull up an example, and hopefully this is still as I am expecting. But this example here, although it's a kind of unrelated topic, I think this is unique because they do call out, they use their navigation to allow users to find any information on the site, right? So you can use this navigation here and find a whole host of things, and you can navigate it in the way that you prefer. So we're not putting any constraints on people and saying, okay, because you're a student, you can't get to XYZ page, or because you're a resident, you can't get to XYZ page. But we are also saying, if you want this to be easier, click here and we'll drive you to the user experience for your audience type. So you can do this either way. They have everything in the navigation, and then they have this kind of by audience option in the hero section, but you could flip that too, and you could have the audiences in the navigation, and then you could have a deeper sitemap or a more intense navigation maybe in the footer or at the bottom of the site. But I think that's something that could work really well for you, because you would have the opportunity to have a landing page or like a home page for each specific audience. And people who Google you or, maybe see an advertisement or end up on your site by direct traffic, typing in your URL, they see your traditional homepage. But for specific advertising you're doing or promotion you're doing for specific target audiences, let's just say it's donors, you send them to kind of that donor homepage, which is a separate page from the rest and puts them closer to their ultimate action, which is donate. So audience kind of definition and showing that you understand that on the homepage could be super helpful to help break that up. Great. And I think something too that you're on track with this. We mentioned kind of this 2-layer navigation before. I think this is very, very helpful. And your challenge again is just that the primary call to action for each audience is so unique. But if you're in a situation like we were talking about before, where we need maybe like donate and view calendar or something, 2 primary calls to action, if you don't have enough real estate, doing something like this second layer is really helpful. So definitely a good example for the group to see for sure. All right. Jason, should we do one more?
We can. I mean, we have a little extra time. And I think same thing for New Hampshire as the same thing I said for the last site. It's just be clear and concise. Clear, concise, and consumable. At a fifth grade reading level, tell people what you want, why you do it, and it resonates. That's all a website is. It's a messaging vehicle. It is not the message. So the same message you would tell someone in person to get them excited, to get them involved, is the same message you want to tell on a website because it's just what happens. When I hear about something that creates curiosity in my mind, I'm going to grab my phone. Used to always go to Google to type it in. Now kind of rely on some of those AI chat scripts, that come up, but there's other ways. The big thing is all the AI tools are still scraping the internet. They're scraping social. They're doing a lot more. So now more than ever, each of your pages in their relevance is so much more important. So I think the need for a website has not gone away. It hasn't diminished. It's just, are they physically going to your site or are they relying on a synopsis of what your site is? And that is a robot creating the synopsis of what it believes you do. So be clear and concise so that it can't make mistakes.
Great. All right. Let's take a look, Juanita, let's take a look at you suggested we take a look at one for a church. So let's take a look at Lighthouse Ministries International. And if you don't mind raising your hand. We can start chatting about it while we're working on that.
Hi.
Hello. Can you tell us a little bit about your organization and your website challenges?
Sure. We've had this website for the longest time, and we've been thinking about adjusting it. We add a little bit of the flashes that you're seeing there, so it can be exciting and appealing. We had a very static website, but the challenge we have is keeping it current. Because you'll notice the welcome says July and we're in August. So we have volunteers who help us. We don't have um housed a graphic designer. Nevertheless, on our homepage, we want people to get the most information that they can get. We're trying to put a call to action button very prominently there that says give or get involved. It tells you what we're doing. So we want people to know what's happening without having to navigate all over our website. I kind of feel like we can adjust our main navigation buttons and make the site more mobile friendly. It's not very mobile friendly at this time.
Great. Thank you for sharing that. Yes, I agree. I think there are the top level navigation you have here is super logical, but also you are kind of bordering on that. There are what, 6, 7, 8. So maybe 8 with the give button is probably just slightly overwhelming. I wouldn't say it's like a glaring issue, but there probably is another way to think about organizing some of these things and prioritizing what is on that menu. Definitely taking a look at the mobile version and making sure that that is easy to navigate. I like what you've done with the give button. I think that that's helpful. There potentially might be some contrast issues here. I think that, and it might just be my screen, but I think the buttons, it's a little bit difficult to read the text over the buttons. So when we talk about accessibility, that might be something to take a look at as well. And
Sure.
you mentioned keeping it current and keeping it updated. We find that sticking with a tool that you feel comfortable with, or the people you mentioned, volunteers that are working on your site, volunteers feel comfortable using so that they can make quick updates. Also relying on templates within that system, we find is really helpful so that every change doesn't have to feel like a big lift or like you're starting from scratch. And if you choose the right tool, one we recommend, typically we build sites on WordPress and we use a tool called Elementor, which is kind of like a drag and drop experience for building pages and navigation and templates. It shouldn't feel like a huge hassle to have to add a new page to the menu or swap out your image on the home page. So I think if you work towards you mentioned that you're looking to modernize it a bit. If you work towards modernizing the tool that's used to build the site as well and making sure it's something your team is comfortable with, regardless of what that is, it'll be a little bit easier for them to make those updates on a regular basis. And as part of that process, you can go through, like we talked about, and figure out your user journey, your key audiences, and then build your sitemap and your navigation based on that. So you're in a great place to kind of do this work and make these updates.
We use Wix, so I
Okay.
don't know if they offer that option, but we usually get analysis, and people tend to go on the homepage and our watch pages and the giving pages. The other pages, I almost feel like what you're saying, we can reduce them into other drop down menus so we don't have so many buttons on the main navigation bar. Because most times Wix would send us an analysis and say persons, excuse me, were on the home page, and that's where we put all our watch buttons. So we have a page for Bible study, a page for the Sunday lives, and a page for prayer time. I was wondering if we should have all of those watch pages on one page and just put the players above each one after the other, or keep them on separate pages.
I think it would depend on the like how well they all work together. If you feel like you can comfortably play one and the others can be on the page and it's not confusing or difficult to figure out or cause any technical issues, I would say less clicks someone needs to make, the better. So
Yeah.
if you can click watch as a call to action and it takes you to everything you can watch, I think that's really helpful and would get you more
Mm,
engagement. You could
okay.
definitely, you mentioned those three key pieces. So when we talk about looking at your analytics and seeing where your traffic is going, you've got a great idea of that. So it makes sense to simplify your navigation a bit, but then also use some of the styling on the homepage, what we call call outs. And it's kind of similar to that audience module I just showed before, but this can be designed in a bunch of different ways. But use call outs like this, and yours would
Mhm.
be watch, schedule, sorry, I can't remember what the three things were, but those three pages that are the most important, call those out so that people don't have to go searching for them.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, great. All right. Thank you everyone for participating. Really, really appreciate it. We're gonna move on and talk a little bit about our website services with TechSoup.
Perfect. So, like we talked about at the very beginning of this, we don't always just provide free thought leadership like we do on these webinars, etc. We also do help and provide different levels of service to where we can really partnership with your team depending on where you are and where you need help. So, one of the big ways, and this is where I would say this is one of the areas where people would love to be here, but not everyone's quite financially ready or doesn't necessarily have all the content assets ready, is more of our growth-driven custom website development. In this route, most of these sites average between $15,000 to $20,000. I'd say deployments anywhere from 3 months to 4 months. But this is where we can help guide you and build more of a customized experience for your digital presence. This is something that's bigger or has a little bit more moving parts than just like a typical brochure site. So fantastic option. A lot of times we build a custom theme on Elementor for clients like Melissa was talking about earlier. But Melissa, go to the next one. We are also offering a webinar special for $5,000. This is what I would typically call more of a lift and shift. So think about it. I have an existing website that it just doesn't function well. I can't make updates. It's hard to work with. It doesn't represent us. I just want to move it over to something foundationally that can support me. And it's easy for us to maintain going forward. That's more where the $5,000 offering comes in. Instead of custom designing a site just for you, we'd have you pick between some of our templated options, which completely removes designers from the equation, bringing costs down drastically, delivery timeline as well. So this is something we tell people to plan about 30 to 45 days in advance. As long as you could tell us who you are, who you want to be, on average, this is anywhere from I'd say 5 to 10 pages. For most small nonprofits, if you can go over 5 pages, you probably shouldn't. Like it's one of those, be clear, be concise, be impactful. The more pages you have, the more likely they can get confused. Sometimes it's all about just providing an easy route forward. If you provide the entire story online, sometimes they don't have to reach out. Sometimes they don't have to get involved because you didn't leave anything left for curiosity. Again, all these you can schedule time with me to discuss. Melissa, go ahead to the next one. So those are both of the, I'd say, more custom one-off options. When it comes to implementing stuff for existing sites, let's say you have a site that you like the way it works, but as Melissa was talking through the ability to track engagement, you're like, wait a minute, we don't have that set up, or we have it set up, but we don't know how to run reports on it. This is a great one-off offering that we have where we can jump in, set up Google Analytics for you, create a couple core reports so that fast forward 3 to 6 months from now, we actually have actionable data that we could go in, report on, and look at. This is also something that my favorite analogy here is kind of like flossing your teeth with the dentist. A lot of people like to say they do it, but they do it every once in a while, just enough to keep the dentist happy. So sometimes it can make a lot of sense to partner with us to actually create impactful reports and be able to review how are people truly engaging with your site and not just taking it from a high level. Because frankly, even myself, it's hard for me to create really good reports in this. I rely on my team. Go ahead and jump to the next one. The last piece is we do offer monthly support. This is one of my favorite offerings because it does allow us to become kind of an extension of your team and help you kind of put out those biggest fires. In the nonprofit world, many of us are often wearing 30, 40 different hats. You have the capability to really manage maybe 15, maybe 20. So if you do have other areas where either you don't have the expertise, you'd have to teach yourself, or you simply just don't have the time, these monthly options can be really impactful for those individuals. The upgrade level is kind of where I would say you're kind of your own account manager. So you know what you need, you just don't have the time or an effective way to delegate those needs. You get access to our ticketed-based system. We respond within 48 hours. It's simply, what are those needs and where are they routinely? Now, this isn't just, I know for today's discussion, we've discussed just websites, but that can vary. So it might just be helping you on your website. It also can be helping you on setting up Google Analytics 1 month. Maybe we help you optimize SEO. Do you want to make an integration with your volunteer system, your CRM system, etc.? There's a lot of different ways that these monthly retainers can be helpful, and we've designed them so that each month, month in, month out, there is effective ways we can help you grow. The premium level, we simply give you a dedicated account manager and you get access to more of our team. So you get more of a proactive relationship. So instead of you having to rely and make those requests and know where to go, this is something where we can proactively help you kind of march forward and identify and uncover kind of that low hanging fruit or what would make big changes for your organization. I do like to point out as a last piece that this doesn't represent the end of what we offer. We offer much greater monthly engagements, but the last thing we want to do is make people think that they have to spend 10 grand with us month in, month out to make a difference. It just depends on where we're helping and in what buckets. From a strategic standpoint, we would love to help you guys grow.
Thanks, Jason. And I am just taking a look and making sure we got to all of the questions. I think most of them were answered in the chat. If any were missed, please feel free to send another note. I do see one in the Q&A from Pat about the question says, is it better to have a donate menu or a donate button that is set apart from the menu structure? And that's a great question. I think it depends on how many other items you have on your menu. So if you are having a hard time finding space or real estate for a donate button, simplify it. Have just the button or just the menu item. But if you have a smaller site and you have space on that, it doesn't hurt to have maybe you call one support us and you call the other donate now, right? The button has a little bit more clear call to action, donate now or donate. But you might have on your menu, you might say support us or get involved, something like that. So if you use different language, you don't want to have two things next to each other that both say donate. But if you do use different language and that's your primary call to action, it doesn't hurt to have it in several places so that people can't miss it. And I think that's all our questions.
Melissa, I mean, you bring up a really valid point, and that's where our team loves getting into some of the bigger stuff and where it comes to like A/B testing. And so if you do have multiple ways to get involved, that can allow us to set up reports with like Google Analytics to see where are you getting the most interest? What does that heat map look like? And we can see, does the button up top for donate work really well, or does the one down below really drive most of the donations? And it tells you, is your messaging working? So there's so many things you can think into it and think and kind of gain from being able just to track these engagements.
Yeah, that's great. And one other question just popped up. I need to show our impact in a visual way. What's the best way to get started? And I think a homepage is a really good way to do that, and to do it with numbers or visuals. So I would say the thing to think about, the more common thing would be something like an infographic and how you display, how information's displayed there. So a lot of times the way we like to show impact is pick 3 or 4 key statistics or numbers that are going to resonate with people and use those on your homepage to show your impact. And then you can either, for the section as a whole, have a button that links through to learn more, or you can have, a specific call to action for each one that aligns with something you're trying to get users to do. So that's something you can look at as well. Another question popped in that says, should every page have a donate button? And I would say if that's one of your primary calls to action, the answer is yes. So back to what we talked about previously about using templates and kind of having your site set up the correct way. For most site builders, if you set your header and or your footer of your website, it should appear on every page for consistency. So when someone navigates to one page versus the other, they should see the same menu, the same calls to action on every page so that they can click through the site. It should also be evident to them which page they're on so that they can know kind of where they are and where they want to go next. So you want to make sure that that header kind of template or piece of your website is consistent on every single page throughout your site for your users.
This is all Charles, Scott, you brought up a good point about, yes, AI does allow you to really gain a lot of these insights on your own. Where we see it is the crawl and walk phase. There is a lot of where there's DIY. Yes, your team is doing a lot on their own, but once you've kind of established that, once you've found success, once you're doing it, that's where all of a sudden just your broad, best practices no longer can serve you, because now you need customized advice or tailored advice based on what you've built. So that's where having someone that actually knows what they're doing, has insights, worked with thousands of other companies, it really can help you get where you want to be much, much faster. Can you get there eventually? Sure, if you want to take enough time to learn, but it might take you 2 years to accomplish something. It might take us 2 months or even weeks to accomplish, just because you're not familiar with it. And so that is very much the nonprofit way. I completely understand people wanting to do DIY, and that's why we host these webinars, to give you ideas, to help you kind of grow organically. But then if it makes more sense to spend financial means instead of spending all the time to learn that you could spend on gaining or growing your mission, we'll do that. It's just a prioritization of funding and time. Time is actually the most finite resource you have. It's not the funding, believe it or not. But we oftentimes fall back on the funding as the core goal. So just depends on how you want to prioritize your needs.
Great. All right. Well, thank you very much, everyone, for joining. We're so glad you were able to join us today, and have a great afternoon.